so long is like alchemy.
That brand new downtown stadium not filling seats in Detroit. And if there was any test of filling seats, it would be that man right there. The two-time MVP returning to the lineup after 11 games missed. And everybody, I think, has been a little antsy about it because we've seen him at practice. We've seen him on the bench, and he looks like he's been healthy for quite a few days now. But they picked this date, a Saturday game in Detroit. Durant falls back to number 2. I'm kidding. Detroit, somewhat of a surprise team right now. Remember, they tend to start seasons hot. They got a new coach. Blake Griffin, I feel like, is Eskimo brothers with Clay. I think when he was in L.A., and Clay likes to hang in L.A., you get what I'm saying, right? But you take a look at their lineup. Glenn Robinson III, Reggie Jackson's always hurt, and you got the 2 bruisers in the front court with Blake and Drummond. So right away, Steph touches the ball on the first offensive possession, and he gets Jerebko a 3. And I was thinking to myself, man, Jerebko might get 4 or 5 threes tonight, you know, kind of playing the Draymond role offensively. There's an aggressive move from Damian Jones. And you know how sometimes I'll say it's a Bell matchup or it's this. This was definitely a Damian matchup, right? Andre Drummond, one of the more physical players left in this league, and it was a chance for Damian to play heavier minutes and have an impact. And you can see how he just scoots you out of the way. He goes about 280, and all he wants to do is rebound the ball, right? He doesn't have much of an offensive game. You take a look at Dwayne Casey. Look, I was all right with the firing, because I think that they did it well before they knew they could get Kawhi. It was kind of like they had to do something, right? Here's the turnover, Jerebko coast to coast. Now, this is somewhat of a homecoming for Jerebko. He was drafted by the Pistons. Shout out my guy on Twitter who, you know, he was frustrated with Steph. And, you know, I was like, man, you know, Steph has set impossible standards for himself to live up to. And we forget that he struggles with confidence too. Everybody does to an extent. You see Clay getting to the basket, but Steph, he looked fine physically. He was just hesitant to pull the trigger, and, you know, he just looked a little shaky as far as what he wanted to do. He couldn't find a rhythm. Reggie Bullock hides behind the screen and hits the 3. Now, Blake Griffin, he really reminds me of LeBron the way he's playing now. He handles the ball. He's a point forward. He shoots the 3. It's all ugly, shoulder dipping, but it's effective. Steph, I thought his defense was all right. I think that was probably the strongest part of his game. You see him not let Reggie Jackson big boy him close out well. You know who all over the glass, though. There's definitely an art to what Drummond does. I've picked on him in the past, and it's only because he's a max guy, right? I don't think he's a franchise guy, but for what he does, he's pretty spectacular. That's just terrible defense from both Durant and Damian, honestly. But Blake, don't get me wrong, he's not LeBron James. He's LeBron-like in his skill set at this point. I thought Jordan Bell was an interesting matchup for Blake, and I think that Jordan could model some of the things Blake does. They have a similar build, right? And similar, you know, Blake was a next-level athlete when he was younger, but Bell, I think, can study a bit of what Blake did because Blake's not a natural scorer, but he figured it out. Speaking of not natural, Stanley Johnson as a shooter. And this is what we're seeing around the league is guys that they're being forced to become three-point shooters, right? And you can tell teams haven't adjusted yet because clearly the Warriors scouting report was like, yo, let's let Stanley fire. And he made us pay in this one big time. You saw KD kind of take the temperature of the team. He was kind of passive to start the game. Steph holding his head down and not being aggressive. So late in the first, KD kind of took over and got back to being aggressive pull-up three ball, right? But it was clear, the telecast pointed out, everybody was kind of just waiting to defer to Steph, and it threw the team's rhythm off to start the game because Steph was more passive than I think he expected and the team expected. It's funny how it only takes 10, 11 games for guys to get adjusted and accustomed, but as soon as Steph sat down, look at how aggressive Clay got slicing to the basket. And I think at full strength, we're going to see Clay get super efficient with his new ability and confidence off the bounce. I think now he can pick his spots better. Damian, the dump off, and the nice finish in Drummond's face. Dwight. Now, this was my favorite sequence of the night, and I'll explain why. Jones goes up strong, and it's, you know, he takes a bad fall, but it wasn't really a dirty foul. But I love what Durant does here. And this stems from what Embiid has done to Drummond. Durant is showing Damian, like, yo, don't let this dude punk you. He can be taken out of his game. He ain't hard. And he's showing Damian, don't back down from this dude. And it all stems from Embiid bullying Drummond over and over again. And I think it helped Damian remain aggressive against a guy that, you know, he was clearly physically outmatched against. But for whatever reason, Steph just didn't feel comfortable shooting the jumper early in this game, but he did get to the basket. I thought that was a positive. Also, considering he's coming off a groin injury, there was no hesitation going to the cup. He gets the and one. And then he's not only a Goon Squad client, he's the Goon Squad president. We got to show love to Zaza. And he's doing what he does in Detroit. He's playing his part and contributing to this Piston team. No, that's just a terrible closeout there by Jonas. Don't mind the scoreboard. That's the second quarter, but that was his third foul, and I thought that really hurt. I think we needed his spacing in this game, and it showed. But, I mean, he just didn't move his feet well. That's just a terribly unfundamentally sound closeout there. Iguodala, look how they're gapping him. It's not Ben Simmons level, but it's still bordering on disrespectful. And the fact that he doesn't want to drive or shoot it, it just makes things rough, right? The eye test for Steph said he didn't shoot well, but he actually shot kind of efficiently because he had a variety of finishes around the basket. Like I said, he was comfortable getting to the basket. Bell looked rough offensively. And I've seen this with kids that are big leapers in particular. When they go to jump, they squeeze the ball, their whole body tenses. And I think that's what happens with Bell at times around the rim. He squeezes the ball out of his hand. You want to talk about a miss. Again, someone opened a window on Stanley Johnson. We talked about the scouting reports. You see a miss like that, and you tend to not want to close out on him, right? It was really just an ugly game to watch. And, you know, Detroit, once again, we got outshot from the three-point line. That's Langston Galloway. You may recognize him as an extra from Oz all those years ago, but now he's a three-point specialist for the Pistons. Where Curry's rust really showed was within his passing and timing in particular. His timing was off with his passes as well as some of his accuracy. You probably got to catch that, Bell. But we saw it on various occasions where Steph, he was just inaccurate, and more importantly, the timing of the delivery of the pass was resulting in turnovers. Now, this was out of a timeout, and you could tell Bell was spoken to because all of a sudden a decisive, strong move and finish at the rim, and you can just tell when a young player was spoken to on the bench, like, yo, we're going to you. You need to go up with confidence. More Stanley Johnson, and it's like, okay, Stanley. I always heard he was a hard worker coming out of U of A, and it's starting to show. What is it, year 4 for him? That was a shard of a shot. And, you know, talking about Bell not getting as much opportunity this season, it's things like that. You see the hustle back block. He had 2 of them in 14 minutes. But it's like if he had been playing more early on, I'm willing to guess he wouldn't look as rough right now offensively. Remember in the summer league, he looked kind of polished, right? When he was the guy offensively. More turnovers from Steph, 7 of them on the night. And you always hear about simulating game speed. That's what it is. He can practice all he wants, but you get in an NBA game and it's just faster than you've been practicing. Looney off his launch pad. Again, though, the volume of threes against us continues to rise. This time it's Reggie Bullock. He's an underrated player. I like him. He's an actual shooter. Clay, despite being ultra efficient, 50%, he only hit 1 3. He was 1 of 5 from downtown, and I like what Kerr said after this game, and it sounds like he's finally willing to address the lack of threes. We're getting doubled over in 3 balls this season. You see Steph just didn't want it. Got to the cup, didn't want it. But I like the fact that Kerr is starting to acknowledge that it's an issue. Now, whatever you do as a hobby, I think you can relate to what happened to Steph in this game. It could be tennis, right? Or it could be Call of Duty, quick twitch Call of Duty. But you take 2.5 weeks off or so and you jump back in and you're just off. You just know you are, right? And we forget about this because Steph, you know, we've seen him come back and do crazy things. Like, again, a standard that's just unreasonable that he set. But in this game, he was human. More Clay, more mid-range. This time, KD, and I did wonder if Steph wasn't playing what KD would have looked like in this game, right? He's coming off 40, 50, right? And, you know, he definitely, I think, was willing to just let Steph do his thing. That's a good read by Damian. Didn't catch it clean. Clay, then how does it say he only hit 1 3 ball in the stats? And 1 must have been on the line. It says he was 1 of 5. Blake Griffin has a very weird measuring 3 ball, but it's become effective. And then finally, off of head knock, Steph gets a wide open look and knocks it down. And timeout right away from Dwayne Casey. And you're like, okay, this is what we expected. Now the quick trigger pull off the handoff gets it. And we've got life. But honestly, let's be real here. It never felt like we were in this game, did it? Steph, Hezzy, all the way to the cup. I like that move. Again, testing the groin, striding to the rim. Durant the roll, Damian off of 1 foot. And that's just rare, right? He always wants to come to the big plant show, showing little signs of growth. Here he is ISO'd on Drummond, and Steph helps him out here with the dig. Drummond, not an ISO guy, and then Durant out in transition, just doing things others can't at 7 foot. I had said earlier on, I thought Steph's, you know, the strongest part of his game was his defensiveness. You see him pick another pocket here. Clay leaning 3 ball, can't get it, but Damian cleans it up. Now, his results weren't great, but I thought his activity level and his effort was decent in this one. And watch Drummond, this is what he does. He waits for you to come give help, and then he just scoots you out of the way and uses that huge frame. What do you have, like 19 rebounds? Now, am I a huge fan of Damian Jones? Obviously not, but I don't want to wish injury on anybody. As I've aged, you're going to see him hit his arm right there on Drummond and immediately grab the shoulder. And as I've aged, I've realized never to wish injury on anybody, even if it's a rival. And Damian, now he tore his pec the year he came out of Vanderbilt, but it was the right pec. And I point that out because the pectoral and shoulder, sometimes that's connected. And this is the left shoulder. But getting an MRI today, we may not see Damian Jones for a while, y'all. And then to close the third, this one hurt, right? The gut shot in the corner to kill any type of momentum heading into the fourth. And then this here was probably the beginning of the end. And believe it or not, that's probably on Steph. He was a little impatient in letting Looney come up and set that. That was his fourth or fifth foul. I can't remember, but he had to sit down. So Bell comes into the game, and look at him think, oh, wait, Steph, I got to set a screen. Oh, you've already dove to the basket, youngster. So Iguodala, that's not on him. That's on Bell, and it results in a transition three. The game just had a nasty feel to it. Like you wanted it to be over. And so Steph continued to be aggressive, and he takes a hard fall on the hip. And you're like, oh my God, right? And at this point, I really just wanted everybody out of the game. I wanted it to be over. I didn't care about the loss, but it just had a feel to it of like things going wrong. He was all right. He continued to go to the basket, but I guarantee you he's going to have a bruise on his hip Monday in Atlanta. Ish Smith got into the game and really kind of put us away. This is a nice play from Jordan. And those are just the attributes you're like, damn, not everybody could do that. It's against one of the quicker guards in the league. But more or less, we just fell apart here in the fourth as things went right for Detroit and things continued to go wrong for us. Steph did get his numbers. The silver lining was I think he found his stroke and his confidence offensively. More Ish, that's just tough, man. And Bell goes down, and now he's holding the ankle. So like I said, at this point, I'm like, man, can this game just get over with? We're going to lose both our young bigs. Steph's hitting the floor at a rapid rate, and we're clearly not going to win this game. Now, to Bell's credit, I think he realized, he'll be all right. He laced him up tighter, and he played through. But tell me that's not Boogie's pregnant girlfriend from Detroit. Like, what is going on there? That is, ain't nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't look like his type per se, sitting next to him courtside. That was just like, someone tell me what's going on there. I don't even have a joke for y'all. Here we go, more spacing issues. You've got almost all 5 players in the paint, and it goes back to the three-point shooting. It goes hand in hand right there, and that results in a turnover. And at this point, they didn't have much fight left in them. In Detroit, I don't think this is as bad of a loss as maybe some of you realize. Detroit, you take a look at their record, and they usually start hot. But I've watched 4 or 5 of their games. There's Steph getting his numbers, 27 on the night. But they beat a lot of teams. They beat Toronto. Look at Blake almost blow his knee out. I'm telling you, the bad juju in this game was crazy. But Detroit's beat a lot of good teams, so this isn't maybe as bad a loss as you would think considering all the variables going into it. Stanley Johnson, though. But just to bring home my point of bad juju and how some of these games, I've just seen too many games like this. Now KD goes down, holds the shin. He's all right, right? But he looked shooken up, and he kind of hobbled back down the court. And I'm telling you, I've coached and been in a part of too many games where it's just like, I'm telling you, something happens. It's like the rhythm, the pace of it. Guys just get banged up left and right. And there is the new Blake Griffin, y'all. Off the dribble 3-ball running the offense, and Detroit gets the job done on a Saturday evening. Now, you got 2 get-right games against Atlanta and Cleveland. There was plenty of blame to go around in this one. No one played that well, but clearly Steph threw the rhythm off of the team, and it is what it is. You have to take those lumps. But overall, I like Kerr. Go ahead and go listen to Kerr's post-game. I like him taking ownership of it. I think that's a good sign. And with the 2 easy opponents or easier opponents for them to figure things out, it bodes well. Headed into that matchup, Milwaukee, I got to do a live for that one. I don't even know what day it is, but we're going to have fun. And you see Zaza, one of the greatest teammates of all time, getting love from every Warrior player and member of that organization. I'm out, y'all.
I've been winning so long, it's like alchemy.